longer.
Okay.
My wife's complaining it's the wrong length. But yeah, they give it really close. I mean, you're talking, okay, more than a quarter, eighth of an inch.
Okay.
No big deal. Doesn't screw you up that much.
You have to do that to work?
The hour of 8:30 has
Oh,
arrived,
yeah.
and we'll call this meeting to order.
Johnny is
Yeah.
coming down.
Open meeting law requirements have been met.
Slow down justice.
The 12-item agenda, entertain a motion to adopt.
So move.
Second.
Motion in a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried. Should have received printed minutes or minutes on your computer. Entertain a motion to adopt those minutes as distributed. Sorry. Anybody?
Motion.
Second? We need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have a public comment period. And that time would be available for the public to comment on today's agenda. That period may be extended or curtailed at the discretion of the chair and after advisement by the property committee. Telephone number to reach this committee is 715-538-1894. Number 6 on the agenda, Samuels Group / Venture Building Project Discussion or Action.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Ooh, got another picture here. This one.
We're gonna let you make a decision.
Ooh, that's-
It's an earth-shaking decision. So the rendering that you have here, the first agenda item is project plans. This rendering here shows you when you walk into the front door of the new entrance, you're gonna see the security station here. Above here, this is where the county boardroom sits behind. This has been shown on the documents as having imagery, so this is actually glass so that natural light will come into the boardroom. But they want to have some sort of a frosted presence to that, so you can't see through there of who's up in that room. On the drawings, it is shown that it's just some imagery. The contractor is required to put some sort of a frost on there, and we would like some direction from you as there is specific imagery that you want to have from, like, the county somewhere to be represented on that, because we can do that, of a landscape or something along those lines? Or do you just want us to go with like a frosted color that's consistent throughout that? It's, again, not a large decision, but something that if we say, what's the image, then you need to figure out who's picking the image and what's going there. If we just go with a frosted glass, it's still gonna give you kind of the same look, because it's a matter of what you would like to see in regards to the final product there.
What's the cost difference?
Kurt and I had talked earlier about this, and the only thing I thought of was it might be nice to have an image of the original courthouse on that glass as people walked in.
Right now, from a cost perspective, whatever image you pick is included in their number. The frost is available to go and say, what are you saving? We still are having them put a film on it. It's just a difference in regards to what is the look that's in there, so. No. So something to think about. It's just a matter of what they do that film in regards to what does the print look like. So there was some initial discussion about it. This was very early on in the design phases about it being landscape somewhere from the county that would be kind of a countryside, but then what he picked, there was also the discussion about it being the original courthouse. There was also discussion about it just being like a frosted glass there.
What's above that? Is that the county or the?
Behind that, so this is this would be the second floor here, so the county boardroom sits back in here.
And you were
It's jury
saying
jury assembly too, not just county board.
you need some sort of decision in.
Yes, we need
Immediate
to, the
future.
contractor is to the point where they need to order the film. So we would need some direction from you If you want it to be imagery, what does that imagery look like, or how do we select it? Or if you want it just to be a frosted glass to be consistent there.
Is there light going both ways there?
Yeah.
Several trains of thought here. This committee can certainly make a decision, I would think, and then suffer the wrath of everybody in the world that doesn't agree with our decision. So, that's why we get the big bucks.
Or a contest, right?
Yeah. Well, we don't have any time, but we could ask everybody in the world what they think, but we'd be too late in contractor having to order
We
the
don't
film.
want to do that anyway.
Yeah. I'm with you. Don't do that.
This can be put up anytime, right? It doesn't,
We have to, what was the lead time on it? It needs to be ordered here in the next
it's like 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks. So we've got a little bit of time, but it's one of those things that we would like to get it ordered.
Some weeks that can drag on.
I mean, if you wanted me to bring this to the board, 'cause I'm going to be at the board next week, I can. But I would like to figure out how are we going to make the decision.
You know, personally, I think we make the decision and then just deal with the after effects.
You bring it to the board, it might be even a problem between us five.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know a little ahead of time, I mean, like, so we could maybe give it a little thought. It's hard to come up with an idea just right off the cuff here, you know, just throw
Well,
it
is there
at you.
something that you think in regards to what that should look like? Should it be a countryside, you know, like imagery from an outdoor scene? Do you want it to be imagery from a historical perspective of the existing courthouse? Because what we could do is, if we had some direction like that, we could then bring you an image that you could then approve. At least we could start down that path to get to that point, so.
Tim?
The IT department feels that the hill in the water, which is what Trempealeau is in French, hill in the water, down in Trempealeau would be the most appropriate landscape
You mean the
image.
Trempealeau Mountain?
Mhm.
Is there already a picture of that?
There are literally thousands.
Yeah. One or two of them out there.
That you have picked out for that?
Our land, Department of Land Management and Parks have taken many photos of that and probably has a really good one that would be available.
What if we should maybe get a rendering of a couple of different options? And
Sure.
then we can decide.
We can work with Land Management and Parks and provide an image. There's one that we have on our website that has a young man in a kayak and a floppy hat.
You have to get
In the
naming,
background.
you have to get naming rights for that then?
Yeah, he's the son of an former employee, so.
I guess I would agree with Tim. I think we should, David, we should look at some possibles and decide next month. Won't be too late, will it?
No, it would be nice if we get it nailed down by then. Maybe if we can, is it okay if we did, I don't know, from correspondence with the group, we could distribute to them in advance of the meeting so they can maybe have two to pick from, and then when they get here, that's not a surprise to them. Okay.
If there's any landscapes in the county you're interested in, we have a collection of photos. And like I said, Land Management does as well.
Dave Carlson's got it down, too.
Yep, so we can gather those up this week, email them to you. You could pick from it and take them to the full board to decide if you'd like.
I think we can decide, don't you think?
Yeah.
I agree with you,
Whatever you choose.
yeah.
Is it okay to email this group with the pictures?
Yes,
Fine?
please.
We will, if you want to
Yes.
get us a couple of them, and then we'll get them out to the committee.
Copy.
Thank you, Tim, that was easy.
All right, so that's one of the things under the update on project plans. I know we've got another agenda item where it talks about results of department renovation meetings, but I'm going to lump that into update of the project plans. We have met with a majority of the departments for the renovation portion of the project. We do have 3 meetings on the 18th. I'm going to be here for the county board meeting, and then after that, we've got some additional meetings after that to meet with the 3 additional departments to review their floor plan portion of the renovation. For the most part, the way those department meetings went is there was a lot of it that was unchanged from the original layout. Dan was able to join us when we went through that. There are a couple areas, one between health and land management, that we'll be making some tweaks on, and then a couple other minor changes with some of the other departments. But our goal is after that August 18th, Venture is currently working on some revisions to the departments that we've already met with, and then when we meet with the balance of those three, our goal would be to bring you an updated floor plan for your May meeting for review so that we can continue to dive into completion of those documents. Other items, just to kind of give you an update on the overall process, we're going to be meeting with all of the departments that will be moving into the new building beginning in May. We're working with the judge's schedule so that we can get all of the departments in the same room to talk about the move-in process, identify some key dates, identify the process of who moves and what does the move look like in regards to equipment and testing and occupancy and all the things associated with that. I understand that after I had left last month, there was some questions raised in regards to systems that would be operational, 2 security checkpoints if it's needed. We believe that we've got a phased approach where that will not be an issue, but that'll be the process that we discuss at those meetings monthly. So those departments will be included. Tim and Jeremy will also be invited. So we plan to do that monthly beginning in May as we start to get closer to the occupancy date in the late fall. Another one is we are working on a construction bulletin that will be coming before you next month. There is a CB out there that has some revisions on the second floor. We're making some changes to the clerk of courts area. We're making some changes to one of the court spaces to be able to allow for some additional seating. And we're also making some revisions to accommodate a couple of janitor closets that were overlooked on our part during the design side. So that CB is out for pricing right now. We were hopeful to have some numbers here today, but that hasn't been completed by the contractors. So we'll be bringing that to you at the next meeting in regards to those construction bulletin items in regards to those revisions. We already talked about the glass selection in regards to those elements that are there. Other than that, that's about the only updates that I have for you. I know that you had some questions in regards to the finishes on the exterior, but we got those addressed. Are there any questions in regards to how things are progressing or tours that you want to make out there? If you're able to go in, there's a lot of areas where walls are painted. Things are moving along very well. Talked to Kurt a little bit about the HVAC system and mechanical systems. They're moving along as needed to be with our occupancy date coming up.
We're still on schedule.
Yeah, we're still targeting that end of October for that substantial completion, and that's part of what we want to meet with the departments in regards to what needs to be done for testing, occupancy, shakedown for the jail. So what that true date is where we open for the public, that's something we need to nail down once we meet with the departments, meet with you as a committee. But yeah, we're still on target for the end of the fall here. So
Now, refresh my memory, you're going to have a 2-month shakedown for the jail?
the DOC, I shouldn't say require, it's typically anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. I have seen it come into about an 8-week period of time. And what that ultimately is, it's a dry run where the building is going to be done, but we're not moving anybody in there until we're able to test those things. And that's what we want to walk through with those departments and meet monthly to talk about how does that affect the operation of the jail, the staffing of the jail, how does it affect the court's connection? Can we do something different with the courts to get them in earlier with state occupancy and review and inspections and all those sorts of things? So to answer your question, it's typically in that 2-month period of time. Some things, I've had the ones that have gone sooner, ones that have gone longer in regards to what does it take to be able to get all the bugs worked out. So,
Kurt, what's the expected date that we would be able to start that shakedown?
that would be the end of October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the whole building is going to be ready all at once to do
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
And then it's up to the sheriff to coordinate with
Yeah.
the Department of Corrections on
Yeah.
that?
And the substantial completion is everything, when you walk in there, everything will be done. Finishes will be there, but we're gonna work through the systems in regards to audio, visual, all the testing and balancing of the HVAC, all those sorts of things we'll be working on, so.
So end of October, within 8 week, so we're talking about being able to occupy the jail first of the year.
Yeah. Now, that's depending on the shakedown.
Right. Well,
No.
just from a budget perspective, we just need to all keep that in mind. I
Yep.
think, so.
Yep. And the logistics in regards to the security desk, we do have a phasing plan that our team is working with the contractors in regards to making that connection point between the two buildings, so that will be ready by that October timeframe. And obviously, what do we do renovation-wise? What do we do first will kind of be a key component to that, right? So once we occupy and move in, obviously, the second floor is going to be the one that is going to be mostly vacated, so it makes some sense to jump into there. So we're going to bring you a schedule that identifies when we get the floor plan done for the renovation, what are we doing in regards to the timing and the start of all those elements, so.
Chair, has there been talk about a grand opening or, public event, so around?
Not that I'm aware of them.
So what I have seen done, and each county does it different, some counties have that after you've moved in and occupied for a little bit to kind of work the kinks out, so to speak. Other ones do it before you've moved in. I would say the first one is the one that I would recommend, is get yourself some time to get in the door, work through the bugs, and then have your grand opening, so to speak, ribbon cutting, whatever title you want to give to it. But yeah, it's typically something that's done on a project like this. When we get closer to those times, it's typically about a month's notice that you want to let the public know in regards to how do we handle that, so.
And I personally would like to have the public have the ability to go through the new jail, so that would have to happen prior to moving inmates in there. That's how we did it with what I refer to as the new jail. That's, 40 years old. Was interesting to have the public in and get to see what's what when people go to jail.
See what they're getting for $50 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the tour is important, to your point. The other thing that I would stress, and different counties handle it differently, is there is a level of security there. So how you want that tour to take place is it would be guided tours of where are they getting and how are they getting there.
Yeah.
But I think it's effective to have them know how it functions and the design and the intent and all those sorts of things, so.
And of course, my opinion is one opinion. The sheriff may have a different opinion on how he displays that to the public.
Yep. Sounds good. That's all I have for you today. I do plan to be here on the board meetings. Or anything specifically you want me to give them updates on? I was thinking about maybe putting a PowerPoint presentation together that shows some progress photos. We are updating that county website. I don't know if any of you check that out regularly, but we do put progress photos on there. I thought that maybe we could show some progress photos to the board. I won't make it extensive, something that's ridiculously long, but maybe some 10, 15 quick snapshots that could identify how things are progressing for people that haven't toured it. Just give a quick update. Is there anything else you want me to bring to the board next week?
I can't think of anything.
No?
People,
Okay.
You might want to be prepared to ask questions, have questions asked on the renovation and,
Yeah.
where are we at on the pricing? I know we don't have it yet, but.
On the process,
The
sure.
whole process of,
Yep.
what we're doing, what we talked about.
Maybe I'll just give them a brief update on the schedule and how we're going to handle that, as well as the progress photos. Okay,
sounds good.
sounds good, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Tim?
Morning.
Good morning.
Updates for this week. I got a long list, so sorry in advance. This last year, for the first time on our agreement with E.O. Johnson, we went over on printing. It was black and white prints to desktop printers as opposed to copiers. Part of that is because I've reduced our rate by dropping down the number. They were so, we had initially had so much allowance, we were paying more on a quarterly basis for our printer support, and I guess I drew the line a little, I counted on savings that weren't there. So as people came back to work more frequently, I think our numbers went back up on that particular flavor. It ended up costing me $400, so it wasn't dramatic. I don't believe we're gonna change that number. I'm gonna just keep trying to get people to print to copiers instead of the printers. We are also working on, we've started the process, the contract is up at February of next year. I don't intend to automatically renew it with E.O. Johnson. We're gonna put this out to bid. I don't know if it's gonna require an RFP, but I think in this arena, because print management services are offered by multiple firms, and there's a great deal of complexity in how they come up with their numbers. They just basically confuse you into submission. We might even seek help in the form of somebody to be a consultant on this, and then they would take a percentage of the savings kind of thing. But that's a decision to be made later. So hopefully I will be bringing some information probably to you in June about a planned approach to how we want to tackle that, because right now we're paying about it's $14,000 a quarter, and it's been a hugely successful program. We're reducing the amount of prints. My staff is spending way less time on printing issues, so it's freed us up for that. But I think there's some real savings potential there, so we'll look into that. We went live on March 1st with Zoom, as I told you last month. We still have a large issue in the dispatch area. We were beginning discussions with an engineer from Zoom, 2 engineers from Zoom, an engineer from Lumen, who is our support for the Motorola Vesta system. We have a possible fix that we think might be available by the end of April, but we got to work out the kinks and get the people talking to each other. There's all kinds of issues regarding that because the support for the Vesta system, Lumen won't be supporting it after September. It'll be switching over to Baycom is going to have that contract. So you're dealing with Motorola, Lumen, and Baycom, and it's just too many players right now, and there's just so much confusion. I think our dispatch area needs some love because they have got so many problems facing them for this transition into the new space. The problems are, there's a lot of them. So right now, they're having to do this 10-digit dial to get transfer calls from their non-emergency line into the building, and it's creating some problems for them. We're trying to figure out a solution for that right now. I don't think it's going to be a high-cost solution. In fact, it'll be easily covered under my small items budget. But getting the engineering right and doing the testing process, we're only going to port the one number over, and that would be the number that is published for people to call in on the non-emergency line. So hopefully next time I report to you in May, that'll be resolved. Faxing, I'm looking at faxing solutions because there's no analog lines at the new building. We're way past due for joining the 21st century on faxing in the building. Currently, we have 16 lines. Land management is dropping their lines, so we're down to 15. We'd like to get that number shaved. Based on my surveys, in and out, we have about 500 faxes a month for the whole organization. So paying all that per line cost for those is just silly. So we're looking at hosted solutions that meet HIPAA and CJIS requirements. We're looking at on-premise solutions. We're getting quotes. We're going to be presenting possible proposals to all the department heads, hopefully in June, and then we'll have answers from them as to what works, and then I'll bring that also to you in June, and then we're hoping to get a new faxing solution in by August. We need to run some fiber from the first floor closet in this building to our existing data center down in the basement. The fiber that was previously run is only 1G and not compatible with the new switches that we have in place. We didn't think that was going to be an issue, but when we decided to replace all the switches for the cores so that we could have one system to maintain, the modules we purchased to go with those switches are, well, they're technology that's less than 5 years old, and the technology that we put in is 25 years old, so I need new fiber. I could wait until the budget is approved for the remodel of the old building, and we could make that work. I'm guessing, I'm getting multiple quotes for this cable run for 12 strands of single mode. I'm guessing with the cabinets about $6,000 is what's going to cost. So once I get the quotes, I will come back to you next month and we can talk about options.
Is that, Tim, is that fiber, is that the existing fiber, is that in conduit?
Yes, so the poles,
you've gotta pull it through.
well, there's conduit from the first floor closet into the ceiling space, and there's conduit next to the elevator over on the south wing, but the rest of it's just in the ceiling. So, which my staff hates because they hate pulling cables in the ceiling, they'd rather just pull it. We have a crawl space, we'd prefer to just have with a string on both ends, we could just pull and be done, but it is what it is. The other option is to purchase downgraded modules for each of the switches that need to communicate back to the core. So I'll get a quote for that as well. It's just that someday those will have to be upgraded. So it's either pull now, pull later, and I'll bring the full slate of options for you at the next meeting.
Unless it's going backwards.
Well, sometimes staying the same or going backwards might be the financially prudent decision to make, and we're not gonna, we really don't have a pressing need. Right now, it's meeting our requirements, but when we replace those Cisco switches, it feels like it would be the opportune time. You might as well plug in and have everything configured the way you want it from the start, rather than trying to fix it later. There is, the TV studio is one of the cable runs that we're concerned about with the new Justice Center and the connection point. And talking to some of my friends in the networking world, they don't think there's a great advantage to connecting fiber from the new data center over to our first floor closet. We already have the connection between the new data center and the old data center. Creating a ring, there's just not a lot of value to that. You're not looking at any situations that involve a backhoe, so we should be fine. Plus, you might create some networking headaches with that. However, the TV studio might need to connect from their existing spot into there next to the county boardroom. So there may be a fiber run there, but I don't think that there's any need for us to get into that process until the plans are introduced for the old building. They are putting conduit in the overheads on both floors for the connection point already, so it shouldn't require us to give too much alert to the contractors since they're planning for connectivity. But as to the actual cable runs and edge devices we're going to use for that, I think we're fine waiting on that, but if we find out otherwise, I'll let you know. Because I don't think none of us really know what's going to happen with the studio and the new site. Jot form was eliminated from my budget. That's the tool that we use to manage forms that citizens can fill out online. At the time when I came to you in the budget process, it wasn't being used. Well, land management had just started using it when I told you that in the budget process, and they've had so much success with it that they've actually gone off to a conference and presented how successful their program was. So they're using it for the tree sales program, and it's working great, and they want to expand its use for other things. So if that were the only seat, I think I could cover that out of my funds this year, because they don't have HIPAA requirements, and therefore there's no hosting. The whole program costs about $9,000 a year, and if I just went with land management, I think it would be closer to $900. But with all the transition in the health department, no one reported back to us that they were using it. Well, my staff investigated, and yes, the health department is using the Jot form for people to fill out forms and schedule stuff. But I can't get a director to speak to that because one is gone and Jen is now out, so we're not able to pin that down. but the whole thing comes due in May. If I have to keep it for the health department and land management, I can reduce the overhead cost by a couple grand, but as long as the HIPAA requirement is attached to it. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm in a spot. If the health department wants to continue using it, which I can't get confirmation of, I need to know pretty soon. And then I need to negotiate, because in order to make this work, I signed a contract last year for 3 years. So I need to cancel it and then create a brand-new account to move forward. So if health is on board, that cost needs approval by you. If they're not going to use it, I can cover the cost for land management. Any advice as to which direction I should go on this?
Do you see a possibility that more departments than the two you've mentioned may utilize this program?
It's a great tool. It's just none of them have been able to dedicate the time to it for one reason or another. I haven't got any feedback as to
Are
why.
the departments aware of this?
Yeah, but the sheriff's department is the biggest potential user with 2 of the seats dedicated to them, but I think they've been a little busy with the Justice Center and whatnot. And I don't know that that's going to change for the next year, that they're going to be able to start thinking about citizen input forms and whatnot until they get into their new space and things get settled down.
How many seats are?
We're currently
available?
paying for 5. And 1 is Human Services, 1 is Sheriff's Department, 1 is Land Management, 1 is Health, and 1 is just a general IT one that we kept because we assumed that we'd be managing the website with it. But we haven't had other departments come to us with requests yet.
So why don't we take the approach, if you don't know anybody that's using it, just cut it back to who you know is using it, and if someone jumps up and down and says, hey, I gotta have this, okay, well, you gotta wait another year because we got a year contract.
That's the answer I was looking for. If you're okay with that as a committee, I'm fine with that.
If there's not an issue with amending the contract in the future, I agree with David.
The cancel of the contract and pulling the data down and creating a new setup shouldn't be an issue because the personnel in land management have taken to it like frog to water. I mean, they really did a great job setting it up, so I don't think they'll have any problem redoing that work. So we should be fine there.
Can they use that land management for the park in terms of
They've already found a
reservations?
solution there for
Oh, okay.
park reservations that they're pretty happy with.
Okay.
But they're seeing the value of the jot form, and I think that now that they've dipped their toe in and had such success, they might actually expand it to other
Okay.
items as well.
I meet with the Human Service Committee this afternoon, late this afternoon. I wonder if we should touch base with them before you move on this, one way or the other. Or have you touched base with them at all
I
regarding?
haven't recently, no.
Okay.
I hate to surprise them like that. I can follow up. Based on your recommendation, I can follow up for sure and make sure. I have a couple weeks before anything has to happen.
If you wouldn't mind doing that.
No
And
problem.
because that still may allow us to limit it, the number of, what did you call it, seats?
Seats.
Seats?
Yeah, it's not the seats that are expensive, it's the HIPAA that, it's like $2,500 a year for having the server meet HIPAA requirements, so
Yeah.
everything's encrypted.
Yeah, and they would fall under that category.
They would. So if there's anything involving PHI, I have to
Yeah. so-
limit that.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just touching base and then you,
I'll reach out to health, and I'll reach out to human services and the sheriff's office, and I have a feeling that all 3 might be like, not right now, we're
Yeah.
up to our eyeballs. So
Yeah.
I'll fix it for land management is the plan. If I find out otherwise, I'd have to probably bring it back to exec finance because I would be asking for money that I didn't budget. Thanks for that direction. Recycling, we have, well, somewhere around 160 PCs, 80 laptops, 13 tablets, about 120 monitors, 6 flatbed scanners, 20 servers, 25 other miscellaneous, basically about 6 pallets worth of stuff that has to go to our recycler. We have Dynamic is the name of the recycler we're going through. They're under state contract. They actually pay us for the hard drives we send to be destroyed as part of the state agreement. I'm looking towards end of April, early May, where Jeremy has agreed to give me his bay now that the skid's out. So
Under
we'll,
direction, as long as Brett's not gonna have an issue, but yeah, it should be just fine.
so we're gonna take all the stuff that's piled up in spaces down on the south wing basement and move it up to that bay, and then we'll have to work with the recycler to come in and pick a day to get all that stuff hauled out. Probably gonna go over my repair budget this year, but I was expecting that in advance. We probably need to revisit the disposal policy, because as you eliminate equipment, invariably, as time goes on, people pay more for things. They think, well, there must still be some life left to that laptop. Any of the laptops, primarily the Panasonic Toughbooks, that have any value, we let the sheriff's office move those through auction. I don't have the time to mess around with scraping off operating systems and then putting them up for sale. We used to do that where I came from, and it led to employee rebellion. Somebody walks into your department and says, I need help with the $20 laptop I bought. And we said it was as is. There's no, oh no, where's the operating system? Where's this? If the sheriff wants to deal with it, that's fine. But we've basically turned over anything we think has value to them. If you want a different disposal policy where you think citizens might be concerned about the amount of equipment we're moving, we're ready to listen. But
It's my understanding the county has a disposal policy, and
we get to decide what goes. There's nothing really in it that says that we have to try and resell something first before we dispose of it.
I was just thinking if we're gonna rewrite the disposal policy, it's gonna be a chore and a lengthy one. Are you having any problems with the way you're currently doing it?
No, it's just that it's human nature. You look at something, that looks fine. Why aren't we trying to make some money off of that? For example, we have smartphones that are in very good condition, but we plan to reuse those inside the organization, not as cellular devices, but the Wi-Fi works fine. So if our jailers want to walk around with a portable device that connects to the Wi-Fi and we don't pay any monthly cost on, why not repurpose those? So many of the laptops that are still functional, we keep those as reserves and use them a surprisingly large amount of the time. Printers that need to be recycled, E.O. Johnson, under our contract, they'll take those from us for nothing. So it's not a great expense to get rid of it. It's a greater expense to try and sell it. So as long as you trust the IT department's judgment in what we're disposing of, then I don't see any reason to change the disposal policy.
I personally, currently have faith in you.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate
Currently,
it.
yeah.
That's an important caveat. Trust but verify.
And that's the only issue that's popped up in the past is, where'd all that stuff go? And you need to be able to say, it went over there, and here's when, and here's how.
Well, in the past, we've seen the front hallway filled up with equipment for a period of time, and
Prepping for the many county annual auctions.
yeah, and usually the cost in prepping is probably as expensive as the return on the time involved.
That would be correct. The most, I was gonna say, nobody's ever tried to put a piece of equipment out in the auction hallway outside my office. Although last week, there was a PC that showed up from a department that shall go unnamed, that was pre-Windows 95. It probably has antique value. He even came with the manuals and everything. But by policy, you can't just auction off a piece of county PC, regardless of how ancient it is. So we grabbed that and we'll include it in our disposal.
All righty then.
The cyber training detail I sent out to all of you. I don't know, I haven't taken that course. It appears to be designed for elected officials to help familiarize yourself with the current cybersecurity threats and mitigation. I feel like it's not a strong recommendation for me, like I'll be scolding you if you don't do it, but I think it might have some value for you to help you understand some of the jargon and some of the threats that are being faced by the organization. 20 years ago, public sector, we never worried about security because nobody cared about our data. There was no value. The only trouble we were ever worried about was somebody trying to shut us down with a denial of service kind of thing, just to be a pill. We always felt bad for the universities and schools because all the troublemakers were on the inside of your network. Well, that's all changed. There is value in the data here. There's value in shutting us down or encrypting our data, and it's made it a much more difficult world to play in, and I'm bringing these things to you all the time. So more knowledge for yourselves might be good. If you can't make it, that's not a big deal, but strongly encouraging.
The email I got, if I remember correctly, didn't have all the information that I was interested in. There was a date. I didn't see a time or a link. It's virtual, right?
It is, and there should have been a link. There's two links, but they were embedded in images, so I don't know how it appeared to you.
So operator error, eh?
Possibly, but they were difficult to translate, because I got, John Ossen forwarded it to me, and Paul Severson forwarded it to me, but I never got the original email, so when I forwarded it, I had to cut and paste it. And the links worked when I checked them, but it took some work, and it was kind of annoying. So I was kind of worried those links might not work for you. If they don't, let me know, we'll send them to you directly.
Okay.
There are two links, and I'm looking at it now. I just didn't even realize they were links until I hovered over it. Okay, so when you click on the cybersecurity for government leaders, that will take you to a registration site.
Yep, and then the one has the detail down below is the other
All right.
link.
I typically don't like clicking on links that I don't know what they're going to.
You are wise to do so.
So now we're good.
You're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Cyber insurance and EDR, I was in a little bit of a panic. I met with some regional IT department directors, and they were bringing this issue up as their cyber insurance was requiring EDR. Basically, EDR stands for Endpoint Device Detect and Respond. What we leverage here at the county is endpoint management, and I'm not going to go into details in a public meeting as to the limitations of one versus the other. Or am I going to speak to what we are lacking? We have other things other than EDR that help protect us as an organization, and those shall go unnamed. If you want further detail on what we have or don't have, feel free to stop by my office. I could share with you. The cyber insurance, Rick Niemeyer sent me a copy of our current policy and the limitations and requirements, and there is nothing in there that we are not complying with. We are clean as far as this year's policy through County Mutual. But I'm preparing for the possibility that we may need to extend what we are doing to something else in the next year, and I'll have numbers for you come budget time to let you decide if that's recommended or not. But there is no action required at this time, which is what I was afraid was going to need to happen, and we are fine.
So, I'm sorry. On that point, so we're currently covered with cyber insurance.
Yes.
If something were to come down the pipe that says, hey, you need to add this type of crypt, whatever,
Right.
additional technology, and we choose not to, I'm assuming that means our cyber insurance goes up, but the cyber insurance may be cheaper than paying for the new technology.
That's a good question. As I inquired the same of these department directors, they said there were two particular avenues. If you choose not to employ a security requirement that the insurance specifies, you could see one or both things happen. One, your premiums could go up almost immediately. And two, if you have a loss that is specifically caused by your lack of that technology, you could see reduced payouts or none at all. Or both of those things could happen, which, I don't know. But whatever we do, we need to coordinate it with Corp Counsel to make sure that we aren't spending more money than we need to on a security solution, and or making sure that we're not exposing ourselves to unnecessary risk. And whatever is worded in the policy from County Mutual, we're going to depend heavily on Rick's expertise in figuring out if we have any holes there. So far, County Mutual has done a nice job of really not forcing you into those kind of situations where they're demanding a particular kind of technology. They're more general in their requests, and they're strongly pushing you to communicate. I think that might be one of the things that cyber insurance is their big, is that these things happen, they have an incident, and then they don't bother to inform them. And the longer it goes without their being informed, the more trouble it causes for everyone concerned. So in going through the policy, I didn't see that there was any push in any one way or another currently. Of the directors I was talking to, only one other of them had County Mutual. The rest were with somebody else, and I think maybe that's why they were so amped up about that conversation, because that other insurance provider was being much more strict in what they were looking for.
Okay, one other question. So, on our policy, is our rates more dependent on the technology we're employing or the number of end users within our system?
The number of end users in our system, and then based on what we report for how people connect into the organization, how much stuff we have in the cloud versus on-premise, and things like that.
It's more of a baseline. Yeah, you got to be here with your technology, but then the more users, the more your insurance.
Exactly. I don't think County Mutual is going off of what specific technology you're employing to protect yourself. They're more worried about what you're using to expose yourself and how many users are exposed.
Right. What is our current policy premiums?
I don't have detail on that on the top of my
That
head.
would be a rider or part of the whole policy.
It's part of the whole policy, and I am pretty sure HR Corp Counsel has that information. I don't have it off the top of my head. Sorry.
You have a procedure in place that if something, you discover something or something's trying to.
We have a-
And it kind of clicks, because the quicker you act on it, the better.
We have a disaster recovery DR Bible that has a quick sheet of order of battle, and we basically created scenarios. We got like 20 different scenarios, everything from a tornado to another instance of COVID to denial of service, any type of situation, and it breaks out the steps that have to happen in each and who needs to be contacted and all that. And that should be updated quarterly, and it hasn't been updated for about a year. So we got to stay on top of that. All right, almost done, sorry. Inside the new Justice Center, we have to go on my team's going to go on a walkthrough this week with cell phones from all three providers, key providers in our area, US Cellular, AT&T, and Verizon. I've done some research, and if you're getting 2 bars or better service in any area, a booster won't help at all. Most of the walls are up over there, is what I understanding. It's just not all of them are filled in, and not all the windows are up, so we're not going to get 100% accuracy on this walkthrough, but I want to get an idea as to what kind of thoroughness we're looking at, or connectivity we're looking at. If I find that, I will basically report back to you next month with what we found in each area, We have solutions available to us. One of them is AT&T FirstNet is offering 3 boosters for our site, free of charge with free installation. What I would need is to, wherever we decide to locate those 3, and we suspect that would be the Emergency Operations Center, the North Sheriff's Hallway, and the garage for the sheriff's office would be the 3 locations that would be likely for those pieces of equipment. It would only be for AT&T phones, though, which they are FirstNet in the sheriff's office, so that would be okay. But those would need power delivered to certain spots in the ceiling, so I would have to make a change request to add power runs to some of those ceiling locations. In the other areas, in the C block and D block, again, the jail staff will have Wi-Fi enabled equipment, and we don't really want cellular connectivity in those places, as far as I know. But that's up to you. You and the sheriff can decide if you want coverage there. Second floor areas, the county boardroom, that waiting area, and then the 3 courtrooms. If we have connectivity there, we'd be looking at a technology that is agnostic, doesn't care what provider. I can get those for around $1,200 a piece, but there would be required to have some sort of exterior mounted Pringles can on a piece of steel sticking outside of the building. Some kind of bracket, and we have easy points to punch that through out of our data center or out of the corner there off the facilities. But then we have to figure out how to run the cabling in the ceiling there, and there could be some, but that was anticipated cost that I have the money in the fixtures, furniture, and equipment budget for the new building. I have $50,000 reserved for me, so we would take it out of there. But until we know there's a need, we won't be able to give you any detail on that. And that's everything. Oh, we're going to get you some landscape photos this week.
Yeah. You're done? Okay.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah, it's all
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Fills her mind.
Jeremy?
My new staff started 2.5 weeks ago. Things seem to be going fine with that. The gentleman, he came from Jacobson Electric here in town, so he has a decent knowledge of electricity, which is helpful for my team. Other things, the past month, we've been updating this building with the correct paint color. Well, correct as to what's the new paint color in the new building, as we've been starting to paint things here, restrooms, and we'll be starting to do the boardroom and the different meeting rooms. So as opposed from the white, it'll go to technically it's like an off-white, but it's called a worldly gray, but it's what the new color is that they've designated in the new building. So the door frames and the walls will start changing color over here as well. Past month as well, where the maternity or mother room used to be in the basement on the south side of the building, I worked with the court system and we moved that room to the second floor into what used to be the small public defender's room. And then I took over what was the mother's room for my office, because it's become more of cumbersome for me to do when they had us starting the what do they call it? Performance reviews. If I'm sitting there doing a performance review with one of my staff members and another one of my staff walks in because they need some of the chemical supplies or tools that are in my office, it was not productive. And then they all started to feel a little bit bad too if I'm on a meeting, anything else, and they got to come in there and get stuff. So I moved what would be my office stuff into that room and then left the other one as a tool room and supply room. Biggest thing that we're having an issue with right now is the same as every year, is the chiller's not running. Today's the first week that it should be starting to run because of the temperatures this week. I was here for about 6 hours on Saturday trying to get that thing going, but every year when I stop it from running, parts of the inside of all of the piping that's in the building start to flake off when it's not running, essentially. And then when I first fire it back up again, every screen, every check valve, everything in the system gets gummed up. So I took most of those apart on Saturday, and I got one of the chillers to run. I have a vendor out there right now doing the big giant check valve that's inside of the large chiller. But I need to try to get those running today so that once we get an outside air temperature of 55 degrees, I have to start running the air conditioning in this building, or else it gets to about 85 degrees on the second floor quickly. It's just the nature of this building. So, but that's a problem that happens every year just because of the age of the piping. The chillers are new, the coils are new, but the piping that runs between the two is over 50 years old. So it's basically the water just acts like a sandpaper all year round. When I shut it down, all that stuff starts to flake off. I do have, again, screens, filters, and everything else in the system, but they just get plugged up like super bad every time I turn it on. And then once I clean them out, I fire it up again, and then they get plugged up again because there's just so much in there. So working on that. Question.
Is there any way, these furnace cleaning people come out and clean the ductwork in the house? Is there any way?
This is all cast iron pipe that runs from point A to point B. The only thing I could really do is I can pressure up the system and reverse the flow of the system and try to blow everything else off. I've done that before too on the heating system, and then it ended up blowing a lot of the gaskets and seals on all of the unions that's through the building, and that caused more problems than not. It actually blew a seal in the first floor hallway right outside of land management and just started dumping 180-degree water in the hallway. That was not a good day either. So
Sorry, I asked.
yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's a valid question. Like I said, it's just, and it's not like I can just piecework some of this stuff out either. So if I'm going to replace it, it's going to have to all get replaced pretty much at one time, which will be a capital expense project at some point going forward in the future.
Those cast iron pipes,
What's that?
how large are those pipes?
4-inch. And then they run from the main boiler room on the south side of the building all the way over here. And they run through every air handler. So that one is not so bad. It's the chiller system because it only runs from the chillers to the pumps to each air handler. The heating system runs through the whole building. Those only run to each air handler. So in retrospect, for some of it, it's not so bad. It's not a lot of pipe compared to the heating system. But again, when it may be probably this year when I bring it up for budget. I've got a long list of things that'll be coming up for budget again for this year. Other thing I'm just making you guys aware of, Exec Finance was aware last year when I brought up for budget, ended up having the utilities for this building. I believe it's going to be in October, but my budget won't reflect that as it sits now. I won't get that first bill till November for October, so I'll have a clear idea of basically what I'll need to come back and ask Exec Finance for to let me finish out the year. The biggest problem, again, that it's going to be facing is I have to have my budget turned in by August, and I won't know what my new bills are going to be until November. So we might have to do some,
Well, you may have to be,
That can be dealt with, though, at the budget meeting in
yeah,
November.
again, that one, it's just more giving you guys information. It's one that they're going to have to deal with, but it's just so that you can speak to it if it becomes an issue. Exec Finance and Personnel Bargaining, I went to both of those committees over the past month to start the process to hire a new custodian. Since I'm at 86,000 square feet here, I'm adding 117,000 square feet with the new building. I did need to add at least one new custodian, full-time, which will be reevaluated into next year to see how that's going, to see if I'm going to need at least one, maybe one more, or part-time after that. Out of the 117,000 square feet, not all of it will be our responsibility. Some of it will be trustees in the jail, stuff like that, because we don't clean the cell blocks and stuff like that as it sits now. But again, that'll be evaluated going forward. I don't have too many other issues, concerns, or updates at the moment, unless you have any questions for me.
Thanks, Jeremy. We've got discussion, possible action on meeting room policy and security. And I have not retained any info on our current policy. We did seem to get hung up at the last discussion on this item over the security aspect of it, because the majority of requests for use of meeting space happens after this building is not open to the public. And therefore, we would have to add security staffing for any meeting we would have, correct? So, jump right in there. What do you think? I'm a strong believer in if this is open to the public, whether it's a meeting or during the day, that we need a security checkpoint. I see, some glaring issues with my own opinion. We can't prevent everything all the time from, a security risk. We can do the best we're capable of, but, if somebody wants to bring something into this building, if they want to bad enough, they're going to be able to get it in here.
The meeting rooms are not used much outside of courthouse hours, are they, Samantha?
Once or twice every couple months, maybe.
Yeah. So to basically lock it down when it's not open for public usage, that's not going to be an issue, is it?
Well,
Other than committee meetings,
right. I don't think so.
I guess, it's nice to have spaces available, but, we have limitations now on what groups can use it.
Is there a concern that once the new construction is complete, we have more spaces available for meeting? I have an issue with the possibility that once that word gets out, more people will be interested in utilizing the space for their meetings. We had talked about in the past, Boy Scouts ever come into this building?
I think they
Used
used to.
to? I don't think Girl Scouts ever did. 4-H. But if that interest increases, we just need to have our policy updated and be ready to go.
Do we need to update it a great deal until we do hear if there's a demand?
I think an increase in demand would be necessary before we'd be able to accurately update the policy.
Yeah, because we don't know at this point if there is any interest.
You think that might be why we had address again in 17 months on the agenda here, is we'd have a better idea of the need at that point?
No, if this helps, just to remind you, Rick Niemeyer, the sheriff, and I met on this, the current policy, and we made some changes, and he said he was gonna get it to you guys before this meeting.
Oh.
He sent it to Paul, and then Paul sent him, like, we went through it or whatever, and then Paul sent it back to him. But I don't know where it went after that.
And
Well,
I didn't see it. Did
On
you
the
see
note-
it?
Well, on the notes from last month, it says, Syverson distributed the courthouse meeting policy. It was suggested that the meeting rooms and the occupancy limits be listed in the policy. The rental charge was changed from 20 to 50. Shriner will take the policy to corporate counsel. I'm assuming that's after it was rewritten, which you guys said you did.
Yep.
So I think we just need to add this to the agenda next month
Yeah.
and say, let's finish that up. Then on the security part, there was discussion about the courthouse screening process. Judge Radke stated the Security and Facilities Committee unanimously voted to have all individuals entering the courthouse screened. The committee recommends creating an after-hours screening or security policy. So that needs to be part of the new policy, that if we're going to open it up to the public to use the facility, we're gonna have security, and somebody's gonna have to pay for that. So that, I think, leads to us to decide, is the $50 now sufficient
Good point.
to cover the cost of security?
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, we left the policy with the security part open because we didn't know if this committee has decided whether they are going to require security after hours or not. So we didn't put that in the revision. And we only revised the policy for this current building. We figured we would redo it again once the new building is open, because it's hard to do it until we actually see how it's functioning. If that helps. So I think this committee needs to decide, you need to make the decision, is there going to be security or not for after-hour meetings? And if there is, then that just needs to be added to the policy.
Or we decide whether we allow after-hour meetings when the
Sure.
building is not normally open for business.
You know, without looking at the actual numbers, I'm guessing that if we want to recover the cost of a staffed security checkpoint after hours, it may be cost prohibitive to people who want to meet here. Because $50 isn't going to cover it.
No, I'd say.
I think the sheriff put a dollar amount on it and said if you guys decide security, it's gonna be $50 an hour. That would cover that position.
Yeah, benefits of that.
Well, it depends on what's gonna be open for rooms and how they
Right.
get there, right? Is what, gonna depend on the security end of it.
Yeah, and in
Now,
terms
have
of.
you already started redoing this
We
part?
already met and redid it. and
Yeah, I know we talked about,
Rick said that he was gonna submit it to you guys before this meeting, so I'm not
Oh,
sure why it
okay.
didn't get submitted.
because I have the original one here, but,
Can the meeting rooms, do we know if the meeting rooms can be separate from the rest of the building after hours? Are there locked corridors? Do we know that?
That's why we didn't change it too much, because that will change once we get into the new building, because there are some that will be, but you're still gonna have people in the building.
I would assume that the same rooms that are available to the public now in this current building would also be available if we choose to open it up
Right.
afterwards. So it's not just the new building we're talking about.
Well, this building is not at all set up for after-hours meetings very well, anyway. It never has been. The only meeting room possibly would be this one, that we can,
The ones over on the other side, in the same place as this one.
Packer room, Trempealeau room.
You can still get to the rest of the building.
Yeah,
It's open.
that's the
Yeah.
main issue, yeah. You
Yeah.
wander
Well, it's
all over the place.
Well, it's a problem here, too, as I think about it, because you can still go upstairs.
Yep. Theoretically, if you're accessing a designated meeting room, you have access to the entire building.
Yeah, yeah. Why?
And if you're gonna have like the Girl Scouts and stuff, they're not gonna wanna pay $50. I mean, that's by half their budget for the year. I mean, we're gonna have to look at this and see how realistic it is to even offer it, if it is, because the school, high school would be a better place for them. They have events going on all night anyway, and here we gotta worry about the security of all the offices.
And they don't have security.
And, there's a lot to take into account here.
Actually, the schools have better security during the day than they do at night.
Yeah, but they shut it off come, 3:30.
Right,
It's gone.
absolutely.
There is no security at the
Right.
school at night.
Right.
One makes that question then, okay, so why do we have security here at all if it can be open to the public at this?
Right.
I get it. I'm not suggesting that. I guess what I would suggest to the chair here is that maybe we go down the path of not having an after-hours policy for use of the facility, until which time, you know, the public comes to us and says, look, we want you to revisit this.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? You know, we're not saying no, we're just saying, right now, there's no demand for it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
But we do have a policy right now. So
We would just need to re-up it. so
we
it's-
should
it's till
maybe
business.
negate that policy
Or
until,
just put on it till normal close of business, which is 4:30?
right.
You know, I'm on extension, and that's where the comments come the most, is that they want their 4-H groups, or they think they do. And I'm meeting next Monday, I can bring that up again and see if there's any, or maybe not, to find out if they're really interested in evening time here. Because they originally got this started, I think, didn't they? Isn't that
Yep.
where it originally come from? That they were missing out on the opportunity to use this facility.
Well, I think we need to gather more information before we can move forward on changing existing policy. Do some research on current demand, and I'm going to ask that we put this on the agenda for next month.
He already is, he just texted me.
Oh, okay. Anything else on that item?
Yeah, I get something there, Mr. Chair. I apologize, you guys talked about it at the last meeting, I wasn't here, so. And we've talked about it earlier. We were gonna, have we ever decided exactly how we're gonna run the security for the new building when it opens? You guys were gonna talk about it, I thought, with the sheriff. Didn't we talk about this like 3 meetings ago?
How it's gonna be done.
If, are we gonna just have that one entrance, or are you gonna still let the employees go in and out?
That's something that this committee needs to decide. It's just how much, the Security and Facilities Committee recommends that you have everyone go through it. But it's up to you what you want to do. You guys need to decide that.
Yeah, because we talked about it 2 meetings ago, or 3 meetings ago. And we were saying we're gonna go through it, we threw it back, I thought, kind of to you guys, so you guys could meet, because you guys had a meeting coming up real
Right.
quick.
And our recommendation is, yes, you have everyone go through security.
And no other door. They can't go out that other door.
You can go outdoors, you just can't come back in them.
Even with a badge?
Correct. That's how I should correct myself, that's how the building was designed,
One entrance.
yes. If you guys want to change that and put a badge on the other side and let employees come in, that's up to you guys.
I was
That's just something, you guys need, it was brought up because you guys need to make that decision. So when the doors open, whatever date that is, let's say January, it's already a policy that's put in place. Well, policies need to be written and.
Right, and that's
We have
right.
to- I think there's a request for you to be on the mic when you're
Oh,
speaking.
sorry. So I guess, yeah, you guys need to decide that now that the security and facilities gave their recommendation. The question is, that was brought up, and I believe you said you were going to talk to Corporation Counsel about drafting that policy, if that's the policy you guys want to go to.
Yeah, because I remember we talked about this. And-
Yeah.
And we said we got to get it down packed before we open.
Mm-hmm.
And you were going to take it back to yours, and I didn't see anything after that, but I missed last month's meeting, which I apologize for.
Yep.
And I didn't know if you guys had discussed it then, or what had happened after that. So I apologize if you did tell everybody, but. I was
Yeah,
just trying
no,
to
you're
get
good.
out.
You're good.
But will the building be set up for entryway with badges, like we have now? I mean, the new facility, will it even be prepared to accept people coming in after hours that way?
That's what we kind of have to decide, don't we?
No, well, I wonder if it would be physically set up to even do that.
So there will be, at the very front door, you walk in and then there's a little vestibule and there's another door. And there's going to be an intercom there that you can push to dispatch and say, hey, I'm here for this, and they can open those doors.
And there'll be a camera on them, I imagine.
That's how it was designed if an employee needed to come in, dispatch would be letting them in. That was the intention at the very start of the building process.
So they can get in the front door with a badge.
No, the employees would go through the screening. They
Well,
would get
what
in
I'm
with a
saying-
badge.
But after hours, how do they get in the door that goes in?
That's what you guys need to decide. If you're going to allow them to badge in, are you going to require them to buzz the buzzer, to have dispatch let them in? Are they only allowed to go into certain parts of the building? And if so, if you're doing that after hours, are you doing the same thing during business hours? That's what needs to be decided on this, by this committee.
Okay. Well, I guess I think it's appropriate to expect people to have to go through the regular screening process during building hours. Certainly, when security is working, they should have to go through that process. So, unless there's some disagreement with the rest of you, I think that's what we would want to do. Is, why have security if you're not going to use them? And this is what we've been doing right along up to this point. But, and then the other facet is, if this committee would go along with that concept, then we have to decide what to do in off hours. And it sounds like there is a solution, and that is that they could come in into this section, but beyond here, they couldn't get in unless they're buzzed in. Is that correct? That's the way I understand your comment. You want to look at my picture? It's a nice picture.
So this is the front edge, or no? It's actually, you can't see it.
This is over here.
It's right
yeah.
here.
Mhm, mhm.
So you could have them buzz dispatch, and dispatch
They
could
could get
let them
into
in.
here.
And then there are secured doors on the first floor and the second floor that were built in to block off like the offices.
Everything else.
So it's just like the main area.
Yeah.
So it's, again, would be a decision by this committee. Are they going to be allowed to badge past those doors after hours
Or buzzed in.
or buzzed in, however you want?
Jim, do you have any idea of, any information regarding any
My
other?
staff will need access after hours.
Yeah, okay, but they can,
Buzzing every time they go through a door. They
Okay.
gotta get places all over
Okay.
the place.
but
Jeremy's staff will likely do the same.
But they could badge those people to do that. They could be allowed to do that.
Your badges would be how you would.
That'd be your
access
key,
those spaces.
yeah, yeah. So
But for
you,
other employees that don't have business after hours, that just came in because they need access, oh, I left my purse at work, they can buzz the door and go through without issue.
yeah, yeah.
That would create problems for Jeremy's staff and my staff, if we were having to go through dispatch to get buzzed through every door.
It would present problems for dispatch as well.
Right.
And I don't think the intention was to disclude that. I think that's
Right.
just a
Right.
part that would be added in.
So I think one thing we could consider for the general public coming to do business at the courthouse, they would need to go through security, just
Yep.
like it is today.
Yep.
Then if there could be a separate entrance door with security badge access, all employees could go through that security badge access every time they come in the building. And then they have the access as they would deem necessary. And security would be able to see who's coming and going. Okay, they got the badge, they're going through, that's fine. Everybody else, come over here.
Well, my feeling is that we should require anybody who comes in this building during office hours, with maybe some exceptions, like you've talked about here, to have to go through the main security to get in. And then at night, they could be allowed to be perhaps entering this area here, but then they would have to go through the buzz process to get in any further. This is after hours. But during hours, everybody should have to pass through here, and maybe there needs to be a few exceptions, like Tim is suggesting, for certain staff that must be in here. I guess, I'm gonna make a comment. They show I don't know if this is the way they're gonna do it, but they show a picture with this open here. I don't like that open. You know, if you've got someone who's a little bit younger and athletic, they can climb over that. You see that?
I don't
Is
think
there
that's
glass
right.
up there?
Oh, you mean
It's
the-
different.
The top?
Yeah,
They might have glass on top there, but.
but I think there should.
And I don't even think, I think it's actually opposite. I don't even think that that's right.
Yeah, there should be some type of a barrier so they can't go any further.
That might have just been a mock-up
Yeah, well, it
design.
probably
I
is.
don't know if that's actually
I think there's
accurate.
glass all the way to the top. There's another set of glass.
Yeah, that isn't the way they shows it. That's the only reason I
It's just-
commented.
It's kind of.
I mean, this looks nice, but it's,
So Dick, well, you were
It's a waste of
suggesting that
space.
during normal business hours, that we have the security in this area, and just like it is today, everybody would stop, put their stuff on the belt, and go through, employees and general public alike. That's what you were suggesting?
I'm only saying that because it seems like the shooters that least come to our attention are oftentimes disgruntled employees. And so I think there is that possibility that could happen. Now, our security person is sitting there in the form of chairperson. What do you think? Am I mistaken?
No, I don't think you're mistaken, but I think if it appears that we're really only concerned with security while the building's open. If we're gonna allow people to buzz in or badge in after hours, it's the same employees we're worried about during the day.
Could be.
That's what's the.
They could come in then.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
So what,
Yes.
I just wanted to say, so at the last meeting, the judge came and talked to you guys about, I know you said you were gone. He just wanted to make you guys aware of the Security and Facilities Committee's recommendation, which is have employees screened through business hours. That is their recommendation. And that is because to eliminate that immediate threat. And that's the same reason why the same committee asked for security in the building in the first place. Is somebody is fired at 2 o'clock, they can go out to their car and come back in, no problem with a badge. You're eliminating the heat of the moment situations, and that is why the front door security was asked in the first place, is for that same thing. Someone's in court and they're upset, they go out, they're not thinking because it's in the heat of the moment. When you stop the heat of the moment during business hours, is better than not doing anything at all, is the Security and Facilities recommendation. You're never going to stop everything. If somebody wants to do something, they're going to plan it out, and it's going to happen no matter what. It's that immediate, in the heat of the moment situations that would take place from 8 to 4:30 during business hours.
Understood. That's, I think, a decision that we have the responsibility to make. I agree wholeheartedly with the security for all during open hours, 8 to 4:30, employees, public, and then after hours. I just see way too many issues to have that security checkpoint staffed after hours for the hit and miss times that we're going to be presented with.
but I think the idea of the buzzing people in the case, let's just say, for some reason, I, as a board member, feel I need to come in and see someone or do something. If I can enter, get out of the cold, so to speak, and get into this section, and then go to a buzzer and get a hold of dispatch and introduce myself and say, I need to go to such and such a place, is there any problem with that? Wouldn't that be appropriate?
Yeah.
There's some.
After hours.
Yeah, after hours. But
In that juncture, why do you even need to be buzzed in? Your badge is your buzz in. Your badge is your access and security to the building.
And the
I just
badge
wanted to
will-
make one more point quick. Jeremy said at the last meeting too, I don't know if you guys remember him saying that he does have the ability to turn people's badges on and off or set it for certain hours too, so you're not having someone here after 10 PM that shouldn't be. Obviously, there are departments that would be here after 10 PM or whatever date it is, or whatever time, but he can do that as well. So that could be part of the policy as well, if you set a specific time for him, or certain departments don't, there's no reason why they would need to be here type of a thing. So that's also something you could include.
Right, and different employees get different parameters of access.
Sure, sure. Well, that makes sense in terms of what you guys were talking about, you and Tim.
And Tim is saying his people need building-wide access, Jeremy's people need building-wide access, et cetera.
But many of us
Maybe others.
don't.
Right.
But if we do happen to need to come in for some reason, the buzzing system is, we've had that for years in this building.
Yep.
I don't see any problem with the buzzing system for some of us who don't need access on a regular basis. I don't know Human Services if they do or not. I would guess that probably not.
I think they were one of the departments that,
Wanted an
the
access.
social workers, if they're on call, they do have to have access to their offices to do the paperwork and stuff.
Yeah, but they
in
still,
all
they
hours.
could still go through the buzz system. I mean, I don't think there are that many people who come
Right.
through. Maybe I'm wrong.
And when the building was originally designed, keep in mind, when we looked at that front entrance and how it should be designed, we took all that into consideration, and it was kind of voted at that time that we'll design it this way, but we also know that this will ultimately be the board's decision on how they want to handle it once it comes time, which is right now, of how you guys want to address it. We knew that employees will probably push back for it because they don't want to go through security. And the other big thing is they do not want to have to go out the door to Quick Trip and walk around the building and come back through the front entrance. There will be pushback from employees on that. We knew that going into it, but looking at it from a secure standpoint, the sheriff just had said, no, we need to recommend this, and that's kind of where we're at, so.
So I'm just going out on a limb and say, and I'm not saying whether I agree with one way or the other right now, but if we are tasked with helping to be responsible for our own employees' security as well as the general public, then we ought not necessarily take in consideration the employees' disdain for not wanting to be able to go and come to Quick Trip if their security is most important. Okay, so I hope we don't spend a lot of time debating that. Employees, there's the door. Okay, that's our policy.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that. So one thing we should consider is, we have security now. Employees come in and right on through, right?
Yep.
Why not change that now? It's not the
Absolutely.
new building.
Yeah,
It's our process now.
Right.
And so if the committee is suggesting, security committee is suggesting that we have that for everybody, then why don't we just give them 30 days notice and say, June 1st, we're instituting this policy.
Are you going to put that in the form of a motion?
Let me finish what I'm saying, and then maybe I will. The other thought here is, do we give some latitude towards the people we entrust to be our employees for the county? In the new vestibule area, we could make the suggestion that every general public person coming in goes through security, they put their stuff on the belt, and they get let in appropriately. And right next to that, maybe there's a door, I don't know how it's been designed, that has a badge access, and you access in during the daytime, no different than what we're giving them access to do at night. Because what they bring in the building in the day is no different what they could bring in the building at night, which maybe is a happy medium between giving our employees the benefit of the doubt or not. So maybe we need to have more discussion maybe before I make a motion, but I wanted to get that out there, because this is the essence of what we're talking about, is it not?
I would say just keep in mind the building that we currently have now, there may be things that need to be adjusted. I don't know about doors or anything like that. That's something you'd probably have to talk to Jeremy about. which doors you can block off and which ones you can't. I don't know any of that stuff, but
And you gotta remember too, if you can let everybody go out every door they want. I mean, they can get out, but they can't come in.
Well,
But
doors-
if anybody can open that door to go out.
Well, doors have been
They
held
can let-
open with pebbles for years.
I know,
and
I
you
know, and I'm
that.
just saying, that's another thing we have to address. I mean, in the thought of the whole project.
Well, in the past, we addressed
Or
it
policy,
as it
excuse me.
occurred, so.
Jim went to the microphone, he has something to say.
No, she nailed it.
Oh, okay.
There are it's not just one entrance employees currently go through. So if you,
So
there's a lot of
currently-
work that would need to be done to tighten that up, because I can walk out multiple doors, I can come back in multiple doors.
So everybody that has badge access can come in this door going to Quick Trip.
Yeah.
They don't have to go through this one.
Right.
Or many of us can go through the sheriff's office, or we can go through any number of.
Yeah, there are several entrances that are accessible.
So,
So in other words, until we get the new building, you're just telling us?
Until the building and the remodel of this space are done and planned accordingly, you might have a difficult time implementing said policy now.
So a lot of discussion that needs to be held till a later time.
Well, that nullifies doing anything at this point, but getting.
No,
your-
not
your
necessarily.
points.
No.
It just requires more thought than just everybody goes through the front desk.
Right, well, they could, actually, those other doors could be disconnected, there's a wire there.
Yeah, well, Jeremy can do it with his computer, just deactivate a badge for a certain door. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
who's on the security
takes
committee?
time for him
Security and Facilities
Jeremy.
Committee?
to accomplish it.
I don't have the list offhand, but I do know that it's
That's a county board chair.
the county board chair, the judge, the DA,
Sheriff.
the sheriff, human services, the health department,
Maintenance is on there.
maintenance. Usually just the department heads show up to it, or a representative for them.
Yeah, good. Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking, because I would think that the department heads would be able to decide which positions they have that would be able to have security badge access to which doors and at what time. So I guess my motion would be to have that committee meet and go department by department, and of the positions that we've allowed to be, county employee positions, who gets what access when, where, and then we come up with a decision on when everybody, because the recommendations have all be screened. So screened means come through the belt, right? The metal detector. And when do we institute that? Because this isn't a new building thing. This is really how do we want to operate day to day?
When is the next security and facilities meeting?
May 8th, I believe.
It's a Monday?
I'm sorry, no, 9th.
It's the day after.
So the day after this
After our
meeting. Yeah,
At noon?
noon.
Can they move it up?
No.
Okay, sorry.
That's set in stone.
No, the-
Yeah,
the
they are
judge
kind of.
Pretty much has to have it at
Well,
noon thing.
yeah, we do have to have them quarterly.
And he is automatically the.
It's just
in
kind of
charge.
set, it's always the same days. I don't know why. It just always has been. It's one of those things, it always has been, and nobody's questioned it until right now, so.
Is it fair to say that once it's all opened up, that this committee supports the recommendation of the security committee in terms of everybody during office hours be screened?
I think that's a safe
You
statement.
offered a second option, I think, was that extra door.
Yeah, my second option would be, and I'm not suggesting all doors, I'm saying one door, all employees go through.
Well, here's an example, just look at the picture. There is a door here, but everybody else is going this way. See that?
I'm just suggesting if the metal detector and belt are over here, okay? The general public and everybody who's not an employee goes in there. Employees come in the doors, just like everybody else, and they go to this one, and that one's got badge access, and they badge in. That way we know what employee came in, when, and that's the only door they're coming in.
Well, I think they would have to, obviously, before they complete that vestibule there, they would have to equip that door accordingly.
I think that actually, the way you just said it, I think that actually is how it is.
No, it is.
And the badges for, like, the sheriff's department people.
Right. It does vest some trust into our employees that we hired the right people, we've gone through the background check, that they're, we trust our people. Now, I'm not gonna get into I'm sorry, you gotta walk around a Quick Trip. That's not a consideration we should even think about.
That's not
Sorry.
happening.
So,
I just am warning you, that's
Yeah,
all.
no,
I'm not
no.
suggesting that you do, I'm just telling you.
But you gotta play devil's advocate here and say, hey, you trust these people with
Right.
everything in here all the time, and you won't trust them to go out the door and come back in to make it nice for the workers. And I mean, if you look at the worker point of view, and I know what you're saying too, I agree. I mean, that's why I brought the subject up, because we have to decide this, because we talked about this, and it's getting closer and closer. It's gonna be here before you know it.
well, that's why I
So,
suggest
and-
we do something before it opens,
Yes.
because it's no different now.
But I think, and I see the position, I understand it. Though I think that fails, as you describe, the reason for security is to give a cooling off period, in a sense. So that pertains to staff as well as visitors to the courthouse too. Because if there is an issue, someone goes out of their car because they have some type of a weapon in the car, and if they have to come back through security, it may not happen. So, you follow me there, that cooling off period pertains to not only the people who maybe attend a court hearing, but also those who perhaps have issues with other employees or their supervisor. I guess it seems like if we're gonna have security, we have to try to have the best security we can have. Otherwise, we're spending a lot of money on security.
Well, we know,
I could go either way on it.
we know for a fact there's going to be pushback if our policy changes to all employees going through metal screening, through the magnetometer and their belongings in the X-ray machine. We've had surprising amount of pushback in the past when we've screened everyone for high-profile trials.
But
That's not going to change. There are going to be people who are working here who don't want to go through just on a principle, the lack of trust thing.
Yeah, and you recall when security was first put in on a permanent basis in the front door, we got a lot of flack.
Yep.
But we're not getting so much now, I don't
No.
think. I guess we're trying to retrain people a little bit here.
Yeah, it might be, the pushback might be lessened now than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It'll still be there, and we'll just have to live with it, I think. I don't see any problem with having employees badge their way in, so we have a record of them coming and going. It's going to be on camera as well. Unfortunately, a lot of weapons are easily concealed.
I would just keep in mind too, before you just make like a decision, maybe talk to the sheriff as well, just because I don't know how he would need to staff that in the mornings, because there'd be a large amount of employees coming in all at the same time. He would probably maybe want,
There
You
should
have
be
to
a
have
line
two
at the door.
people.
right, and so that's something that,
20
right.
And, yeah.
But they can get in,
So-
at least they can get in out of the weather.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah, we got a larger foyer than we do now.
I don't know how large it's gonna be, but I guarantee you, there's gonna be times where there's people standing outside.
That's
I'm
large.
saying for right now, though, if you changed it with the current building, right now, with the current building, there will be people outside, but I also don't know how that, I would just suggest talking to the sheriff before maybe making that decision, just because I don't know how he would want to work that.
And people come in before 7:30 to
Yep.
have coffee or
Right.
whatever,
Before
so-
security is staffed.
Yeah, what times of the day are security here? I mean, they could come at 6 o'clock in the morning, but they don't start work till 8. That's not gonna work either, so.
Right.
Yeah, I see.
But then that just goes with your, if it's after hours or before hours, it's, you have to set the time frame of when people are getting screened, if that's what you're doing, or if they come before, then they don't get screened. So, again, it goes like both ways, like you said. It just depends on what this committee wants to do.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we kick the can down the road another month, have the sheriff in, and if Dave is ready to make a motion, then let's have him make a motion, throw it on the table for, and so we can move on something
Yeah,
here.
Next month.
Can you put it on the agenda for next month? Thank you, Sam.
I'm going to withdraw my motion request because I really, after discussion, this has been good. I don't think we still have yet all the information we want to have. If the sheriff's going to come in and give us information, we need to hear him out.
Is there anybody else, do you think, that we need to talk to? You're going to be here, aren't you? You'll be here next time. Well, sound enthused.
Yeah, you should maybe have the janitor staff. Do they come in early? I don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah, see, and they come in early. Who's gonna, and so what time do they come in? And there's a lot of different scenarios that we can throw around, and we'll have a month here to think about them.
Just one other comment. I've had the fortunate opportunity to visit many Fortune 500 company headquarters locations, okay? And there's thousands of people coming and going. And some of them have very elaborate security systems. But even the ones with elaborate security systems have a badge system where you badge in, I got my purse, my bag, my whatever, and I walk through. There isn't a magnetometer and all that kind of stuff. So because we have the fortunate ability to have the sheriff's department here, and it's easy for us to grab them and say, you're our security, we need to consider that, okay? On the flip side, the court system that we have here is very sensitive to things of the elevated nature, which, okay, we have the sheriff, but we should be taking that into consideration for the general public to be protected when they come to the Justice Center for, let's face it, times of, high emotional activity. I think we got to separate that between business at the courthouse and, the other departments within the county and the courthouse activity. As an example, some counties have a completely separate, county building to operate their health departments and all that, multiple buildings. But the courthouse, that has security, typically manned by a sheriff's department deputy. The other buildings, there is no security at all. They have a badge maybe or a key to a door. So something else for us to ponder and think about. Could we segregate it in a way that helps our employees feel like they're trusted, or
Yeah, appreciate it.
do we lock it down? I mean, again, I'm still ambivalent. I could go either direction. Doesn't matter to me. I come in, half a dozen times a month, so.
Let me just throw something out, and it may support what you're saying. When we first set up security here, there was how should I state this? There were departments that were very concerned that there be security for themselves as well as situations up in the courtrooms. And that's one reason, I'm reading something into this because I was on the board when the board approved building. When the board approved building, it was tying the two together, the buildings together, so they have one security. And there was some suggestion, I'll take the credit or the blame, to have a separate justice system, separate entrances. And but I think it was the feeling probably of the board that approved the building project that there should be security provided for everybody, not just one major department. And so obviously this allows us to have one station rather than two stations and so forth. And I think they were concerned, the people in other departments were concerned that their, human services was one, that there may be families that are upset with what's taking place, that they would blame the social worker for a matter going into juvenile court. And they were concerned about their welfare. But the fact that they were concerned about they weren't concerned about their fellow employees, they were concerned about someone coming in. And these people would have to go through the regular security. So that's kind of supports your position to some degree, well, your comments earlier. I won't say position, but your comments earlier. But anyway, I think we're gonna, if we have more of the resources coming in next month, maybe we can make a decision then, hopefully.
And keep in mind, you actually do have another building across the street right now with employees in it.
Yeah.
That would not go through screening if you did make that change, because they're in a separate building right now.
Yeah, they will be.
Through the
over
health
here.
department,
Yeah.
or I'm for human services.
Yeah, they will be over here, obviously, and that'll take care of that problem.
Right. And that was looked at, you're right, at the very beginning of keeping them separate and having two entrances, and one would be for this part of the building, and the security would be for, like, the Justice Center, but they decided to make it all one big building, so then that's where the one entrance came in.
And another thing that we may have to talk about too is that what exits are we going to allow people to use unless it's an emergency? You know, if you go out, if you want to go to the Quick Trip, you're going to go out the door that's closest to you probably. And so, you know, there's a security, it may be a security issue there too, because again, how many times did we see rocks in the door to hold the door open towards a Quick Trip? That used to be a common thing.
We've hopefully put a stop to that, because we do actually look at the security cameras and confront those people. And we haven't seen it happen in a long time.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be an advocate of putting an emergency exit only on all exits except the front one. I would.
Well, that would
I
make sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then we'll ask Quick Trip to move over across the place.
We did consider having them bring some sort of cart into that little area between this building and the new building, that open area. We thought, you know, they could maybe at least sell coffee out of there, but no one really brought it to Quick Trip's attention, so I don't know.
It is more than Quick Trip they go to.
Right.
They do support the downtown of Whitehall, the restaurants.
Right.
Sure,
And
sure.
stuff. So it's an economical thing too for the city. It's another thing you might have to look at.
And at the very beginning, when they looked at building, was it going to be here? Was it going to be out of town? And it was keep it here to keep the businesses in town happy too, because all of the employees do go to those businesses. And if the courthouse was moved out of town, they may not, so.
We're heart healthy. We want them to get their exercise.
Right. Maybe
Yeah,
that's something with the health
You'll
insurance.
you'll have to go over to Black River and talk to them about their Jackson County. They're talking about moving out of town. Have to encourage them to reconsider
Well,
that.
they have like 4 buildings,
Yeah. That's a whole different ballgame.
right?
Do we have to go to closed session now?
No, you should have gotten an amended agenda. We are not going into closed session because the topic kind of got, at exec finance, they went, no,
Oh, that one.
never
Okay,
mind.
I got it.
That had to do with the idea of having a drug use policy on this and future construction sites.
So are we? all
Our
done?
agenda would look a lot like, for next month, would look a lot like it did this month, and the heck is the next meeting? May 8th, 8:30 a.m. Everybody good with that? Perfect. I will adjourn this meeting at 10:19 a.m.
8 a.m. or 8:30?
8:30.